Hello, Tanti students and parents. Welcome to our literacy night. I am Mr. Snarsky. I'm a math and science teacher at Tanti. I've taught third, second, and fifth grades. And no surprise, I did choose a math themed book for my read aloud, but I also wanted to match the spirit of our movie theme. So the book that I chose, and I'll be reading it on Kindle, is Perimeter, Area, and Volume, a monster book of dimensions by David A. Adler, illustrated by Edward Miller. Now, I do realize that the words are backwards to you on the screen, but the illustrations really make the book, I think. So I will read carefully and make sure that you get to enjoy the illustrations that go with, hopefully, some helpful math tips that will take you through your Tanti career and beyond. But let's start reading the book. Perimeter, Area, and Volume, a monster book of dimensions. This is the inside page. Oops, we went past the inside page. And here we go. Let's set the scene. We're in the movie theater. Have you ever been to a 3D movie? 3D movies look real. If there's a monster walking on the screen, it might seem as if he is walking toward you. As the monster on the screen gets bigger and bigger, it seems as if he's coming closer and closer. Such movies are called 3D because they seem to have three dimensions. They seem to have length, width, and depth. The three dimensions are sometimes called by different names. We might say something is tall, high or long, wide or broad, deep or thick. Whatever words we use, all things we can hold or walk around have three dimensions. Here are the monster stars of the movie Monsters in the Neighborhood. They're posing for a picture. Are they all the same size? They might, some might be the same height, but not the same size. Height is just one dimension. Each monster has three dimensions. Each monster is tall or short. Each monster is wide or narrow. Each monster is fat or thin. To know how big something really is, you need to know all three dimensions. But sometimes you just need to know just one dimension. In the movie Monsters in the Neighborhood, the monsters are bothered by nosy neighbors who run across their yards and look in their windows. The monsters decide to put up fences. Before they can buy the fences, they need to know how long each side must be. They need to know the total length of the fence around each yard. Length is just one dimension. Let's take another look before we go to the next page. And now we get a view of the yards that surround the houses. Take a look at these two yards. One is bigger than the other. How much fencing would the monsters need for each yard? To find out, add up the lengths of all the sides. When you add up the sides of each yard, you are finding its perimeter, the distance around. So I'm going to share with you the perimeter for this yard here. Oops. The perimeter for this yard is 60 feet plus 80 feet plus 66 feet plus 80 feet equals 286. So 286 is the perimeter here. Let's find out what this perimeter is. I wonder if you think it's going to be larger, smaller, or the same. The perimeter here is 40 feet plus 90 feet plus 42 feet plus 90 feet, which equals 262 feet. So the perimeter of this yard is slightly bigger than the perimeter of this yard. The distance around a circle is its circumference. To find the circumference of a circle, you first measure its radius, the length of a straight line drawn from any point on the edge of the circle to its center. Then you double its radius and multiply that by pi, which is about 3 14/100. Some of you might know that March 14th is known as Pi Day because it's the 14th day of the third month. Now, pi, Pi, is a math figure, but of course, I think most of us think of something like apple or cherry pie when we hear that word, P-I-E. So some people mix the two and they celebrate by having pie on Pi Day. Inches, feet, miles, centimeters, meters, and kilometers each measure just one dimension. Next page. Look at the posters outside the movie theater. Each has a drawing of a monster. Do the monsters in the posters look real? It's difficult to make a drawing look completely real because real things have 3 dimensions and a picture has 2 dimensions. Pictures have just length and width. Pictures and the surfaces of flat objects have 2 dimensions. Now the book has a great little homework assignment for you guys to do after this. Yes, homework can be fun, don't forget. With paper and crayons, draw a picture of a monster. Does it look real? So take on that challenge. Draw a monster with crayons and paper. There was a little comedy in the monster movie, students. How big is the movie screen? If the side of each square is 1 foot long by 1 foot wide, the area of the square is 1 square foot. Count the squares. You are finding the area of the screen. So, students, again, take a look at the screen. Normally, you're not going to see squares on the inside of the movie screen, but this is to remind us that when we find area, A-R-E, that is actually what we're doing. We're counting the squares inside. I hope we're going to find a shortcut instead of counting all of those squares. Look again at the screen. It's a rectangle. It has 4 straight sides. Its opposite sides are the same size, and all 4 angles are right angles. To find the area of a rectangle, you multiply its length by its width. Oh, it sounds like that's the shortcut I was listening for. Okay, so we've got the width here and we've got the length here. The length of the movie screen is 12 feet. That means it's 12 feet tall, 12 feet high. Its width is 16 feet. Its area is 12 feet times 16 feet. Its area is 192 feet. Area measures surface. It's a two-dimensional measure. Get a ruler or tape measure. Measure the area of a sheet of paper. It might be 10 inches long and 8 inches wide. To find the area of this page, multiply the length by the width. Square inches, square feet, square miles, square centimeters, square meters, and square kilometers each measure area. This book has 3 dimensions. Yes, even my Kindle tablet has 3 dimensions, but I think they mean the type of book that this monster is holding, the old school kind. The only kind of book that was around when I was your age was this kind of book. The very top of this page to the bottom is the book's length. The left side of its page to the right side of its page, so going across, that is the book's width. When you close this book and look at the piles of pages all bound together, you are looking at the book's third dimension, its depth or thickness. So the more pages in between the covers of a book, the thicker the book will be. Ooh, my favorite part of going to the movies, the popcorn counter. Let's find out what popcorn has to do with math. At the movies, you can buy a large box of popcorn or a jumbo box. Which box is bigger? That's easy. The jumbo box is bigger than the large box. What makes one box bigger than the other? One box is bigger than the other because it's higher, wider, or thicker. When any one of the 3 dimensions increases, the size of the box increases. Of course, when both boxes are filled, the jumbo popcorn box has more popcorn in it than the large box. We call the amount a box holds, or the space with 3 dimensions, or the space anything with 3 dimensions takes up, its volume. The larger the box, the greater its volume. So again, take a closer look at the jumbo box compared to the large box. The jumbo box also has a greater volume. The jumbo box is 8 inches high, 4 inches wide, and 4 inches deep. To find its volume, multiply 8 by 6 by 4. The volume of the jumbo box is 192 cubic inches. The large box is 6 inches high, 4 inches wide, and 3 inches deep. To find its volume, multiply 6 by 4 by 3. The volume of the large box is 72 cubic inches. You can compare the volume of many boxes by measuring the 3 dimensions of each and then multiplying. Let's take a look at the other page before I read it for you guys. A cube has 3 dimensions: height, width, and depth. So we measure volume in cubic measures. A cubic inch is a cube. that is 1 inch high, 1 inch wide, and 1 inch deep. A cubic centimeter is a cube that is 1 centimeter high, 1 centimeter wide, and 1 centimeter deep. Cubic inches, cubic feet, cubic centimeters, and cubic meters each measure volume. And you guys are going to have to trust me on this. This cube is an example of a cubic inch, while this cube is an example of a cubic centimeter. An inch is larger than a centimeter, so a cubic inch, of course, is going to be a lot bigger than a cubic centimeter. It's getting exciting. Tonight is the opening night of Monsters in the Neighborhood. The monster stars and their families have come to the premiere. It's time for pictures. The photographer tells the monsters and their families to line up. He wants short monsters in front and tall monsters in back. In lining up the monsters, the photographer is only interested in one dimension. He's only interested in the height of the monsters. Uh-oh. It's starting to rain. The photographer puts away his camera. The monsters rush to get inside. But the door is not made for monsters. Some of them are too tall to get through. Some are too wide to get through. The door frame has two dimensions. It has height and width. Now it's time to go home. But it's still raining. There are lots of raincoats in lots of sizes. The biggest monster will need the biggest raincoat. The size of each monster is determined by how tall or short, how wide or narrow, and how fat or thin the monster is. I wonder if you could take an educated guess which monster is going to require the biggest raincoat. Perimeter, let's take a look at the page first. Students, this is a nice summary of the things that we learned in this book. Perimeter and circumference are the distances around one-dimensional shapes. Area is the space inside a two-dimensional object. Volume is the space a three-dimensional object contains. Monsters and everything you can hold, pick up, or walk around have three dimensions. Okay, so remember, we learned about area when we saw the movie screen. We learned about perimeter when we built a fence around the monster's yard. We learned about circumference being the distance around a circle. And we learned about volume by the size of different popcorn boxes. The end. It has been my pleasure to read this to you. I hope you're going to view as many read aloud videos as you can, and that will inspire you to read books that you love or find books that you love, not just the rest of the school year, but all summer. Okay? There's never a bad time to be reading. It's been great reading to you. Take care, Tanti.